I think we can all think back to a random Friday afternoon in high school when almost everyone was nodding off because of the lack of concentration in the air. You stayed up last night preparing for a test for Friday morning. After the adrenaline test of the test wore off, you suddenly hit a wall and you were beyond tired. And now you can't seem to wrap your head around the concept your math teacher is trying to explain. If you only had an extra hour or two of rest in order to have more focus throughout the day. The night before was not super bothersome because you probably would have not gone to sleep before 12 a.m. anyway, but the fact that you woke up at 6:30 to get to school was really the thing that played into the feelings of exhaustion. Early start times of high school are the culprit of increased drowsiness, lack of focus, tardiness, and increased irritability in students. In this way, high school should start no earlier than 8:30 in the morning or have their start time pushed back an hour. Through multiple hours of research, many credible articles from various news sources, journals, and universities, I was able to compile a summary of what the issue is that is plaguing high schools, what the sleepiness is caused by, and how it can be fixed. In addition, there may be some arguments disagreeing with the statement that school should start later, but in the end, the benefits largely outweigh the costs. When teenagers are growing up, there are many necessary things that get put on the back burner, including sleep. Teenagers are sleep deprived. When you think back to high school, how many hours of sleep were you getting? When I look back, I was getting normally 6 to 7 at the most, and that would be the case for most high schoolers. According to the CDC in 2020, teenagers should be getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep each night, but in reality, they are getting far less. People ages 13 to 17 are supposed to be getting lots of hours of sleep, according to Better Health. Most teenagers are getting 6.5 to 7.5, including myself a couple years ago. Although the majority of teenagers get minimal sleep, they're still performing every single day, when in reality, they're not getting the energy that they really need. These 8 to 10 hours will provide the body enough energy to go throughout the day. This lack of sleep affects the body in many ways. Healthline in 2020 says that sleep deprivation is linked to a weakened immunity and can affect your body's natural way of fighting off infections. It is also linked to poor balance and coordination, leading to more falls. Lack of sleep raises blood pressure and can be linked with weight gain because of the signs and signals sent to your brain that tell you that you are full, leading one to overindulge. The lack of sleep can also affect the mind in many ways. According to Healthline, there can be trouble thinking and with concentration. Your mood can change rapidly, along with different emotions and being quick-tempered. Lastly, there can be memory issues with the brain, as it is losing precious connecting time that would normally be used while sleeping. The effects of sleep deprivation can be detrimental to the mind and body. Teenagers should not be at risk for these outcomes at such a young age because the cause can be largely prevented. One of the main causes of teenager sleep deprivation is the early start times of schools across the nation. When you think back to high school, when did you go to bed and wake up? For me, I would say it was around 12, and then I would wake up at 6:30. Even though this is the case for most high schoolers, this is not how it should be. Schools have had a similar schedule for quite some time, but it is different than regular working schedules. The times can mess with the performance of the student and their natural sleep and waking cycles. And the sleeping and waking schedule is not the right schedule that the school has set. Many schools are starting earlier than regular work schedules. According to the CDC in 2020, 42 states reported that most, being 75% to 100%, of public middles and high schools started before 8:30. A regular day at school would look like many hours there, such as a start at 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., providing enough time for significant learning. This is an early start, but is it worth it if they're not gaining the students are not gaining the necessary information they would if they were getting 100% rested? The early start times affects the school performance of the student as well. Students who go to school early in the morning have an increased likelihood for participating in risk behavior, have a greater chance of unhealthy behaviors a higher risk of athletic injury, an increase of depressive symptoms and suicidal thoughts, and an increase of motor vehicle accidents, according to the Sleep Foundation in 2020. The early start times also put a strain on studying times because students feel as though they do not have enough time and they're too tired, so they need to go to bed. Lastly, students are less likely to participate in extracurricular activities and physical activities as they are too tired, which can also lead to weight gain. So why don't students just go to bed earlier? Wouldn't they be getting more sleep? I initially thought of this myself as well, but thinking back to high school, I wouldn't get tired until at least 11 p.m. each night. While an individual is maturing and going through puberty, their internal clock or their circadian rhythm shifts just a little bit and throws off their previous sleep schedule that they had. This sleep schedule tends to make them go to bed later and wake up a little bit earlier. However, with the early start times through school, their sleep schedule is thrown off, making them go to bed later, wake up earlier, and then lose sleep. Students are sleep deprived because of the early start times of schools, but what if there was a simple change that could be made to take out the risks and create a better system for students? High schools across the nation should not start earlier than 8:30 in the morning or push their start time to an hour later than their previous start time. If you had an extra hour in the morning, would you use that to sleep a little bit longer? I know I would have. The high schools start early, as previously mentioned. There would be many benefits of a later start time, and with every change, there is also negative outcomes. Most high schools begin around 7:45 to 8 a.m. The majority of students need to wake up an hour or so before school begins in order to get ready for the day and to get to school on time. If students were to push the start time to at the earliest 8 a.m. or push their start time an hour later, that would provide students the necessary time to sleep in the morning. Schools would then end a little bit later in the day, but depending on the start time and how long the normal school day is, it would change for every high school. If schools were to start later, the students would also reap multiple benefits. According to Amy Morin in 2021, students would receive more sleep, better sleep, be less reliant on caffeine, and get better grades. Students would also have more time in the morning for a healthy breakfast, which is most often the one that is skipped most regularly, even though it is the most important. High schools would also have better test scores as well. According to a study from Education Next in 2012, delaying school an hour would provide 2 to 3 percentile points in reading and math. Even though students may get more beneficial time in the morning that is supposed to be used for sleeping, there may be some negatives of the change in the sleep schedule as well. According to the Sleep Foundation in 2021, there may be scheduling conflicts, transportation challenges, as buses would run on a different schedule and possibly run into rush hour, or they would just need to change their schedule. But with careful readjustments, scheduling conflicts can be avoided. Some may think that by giving students an extra hour or so in the morning, they would go to bed an hour later or so at night, canceling out the benefits of moving school times. But based on teenagers' biological clocks, they would naturally get tired at the same time they did before the schedule change anyway. Even though there are some few adjustments that would need to be made, the benefits of a later start to school would outweigh the negative aspects. In the end, the process would happen over a few years, starting slow and seeing how the changes made a difference in a certain community, with the end goal to reduce sleep deprivation in teenagers. Teenagers are supposed to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night, when in reality they're only getting 6 to 7. One of the main factors in sleep deprivation is the early start times in schools. Not only do the start times line up with the natural biological rhythm or the circadian rhythm of the body caused by early start times, but the early start times may also cause weakened immune system. It can lead to heart disease, weight gain, thoughts of depressive moments and suicidal thoughts, and especially low concentration when in school you're supposed to be concentrating the most and learning as best as you can. The early start times of school are The culprit of increased drowsiness, lack of focus as stated before, tardiness, and increased irritability in students. In this way, high school students should start 1 hour later than their current time or no earlier than 8:30 in the morning. If you had a chance to change the high school schedule, would you? I mean, after all of this information and the effects that it can have on a teenager's body, I hope you would.